now that I have my pictures printed out, I'm going to show you how to create an armature that looks like this using cardboard. So I printed my image out, and I actually did print a few out because I'm very meticulous in terms of trying to get it to the proportion that I desire and accurate as possible. So this one is the main one that we are going to be focusing on for right now. So the only two things or three things that you'll be cutting out are the overall body shape and the one arm and one leg, okay? The side view is what you're gonna be using. So I have cut my shapes out. It was, intact at first. And then I traced the outline of the body. And I did this arm, and I tried to make sure that I followed, where the hand was compared to the other hand, and also over here. So now I have the three parts. Now I can use these to start making my cardboard armature. So the first thing that I did was I created the body, and I taped that on there so I could show you it set up fully. So I just laid this image on a piece of cardboard, and I traced around it, and then I used an X-Acto knife to cut it out, okay? So when you get a piece of cardboard, you're going to find a scrap piece that is the right size for you. So I have a large size, medium size, and small size cardboard box, and I'll show you where those are at. So I have this, and then I trace the leg and I trace the other leg. So obviously you'd be making two legs, you'd have to trace it twice. Always use a scrap piece of cardboard, and I just grabbed one, and I've been using this ever since I started making my project. And be mindful that these are super sharp and you can hurt yourself with the X-Acto knife. So you wanna be mindful of that. Keep your hand out of the way. But if you cut directly on the table, it's gonna scratch it all up, and that's not cool. So you might not be able to get it cut out on the first time. A lot of times you have to cut through the cardboard a couple times to get it through. Now, if you're trying to force it, then your edges can end up looking rough. So I would just, take your time to slowly cut through that. And we are gonna have to share X-Acto knives. You can also see that I used this scrap piece of cardboard very wisely. I took it all the way to the edge. Obviously, no other part could fit on this piece, but this is what I had left over. So try to be mindful about the cardboard that you're using. Make sure it's like the least amount of cardboard as possible. So putting it all the way up to the edge. Okay, so once I, cut all of those out, all of the pieces. So I had this piece, 2 arms, and 2 legs. Now I can start figuring out where these things are gonna be placed. So what I did is I laid this cardboard piece back on here, and I just drew a line for placement of where the middle of the arm is, okay? And the same thing I did for the legs. The legs are pretty far back. And I drew 2 lines here. So one for the middle of the leg, and I also wanted to see where the knee touches down here. Tricky part is the understanding about how thick this is. So that's why I had you print out a frontal view and a side view. Unfortunately, the animal that I chose didn't have a perfect front view, so they did the best that I could. So for this one, I measured the space between the arms, so from here to here, and from here to here, and I got about 3, so this is the widest point. If I went from the middle of the arm to the middle of the arm, so here to here, I got 4. So I made a piece of cardboard that is kind of in the shape of this. I wanted it to be rounded. It's 4 inches long, okay? And I first just made a square, and then I just trimmed down the sides. And then I cut these slits so that where I made my mark there, I can just slide that inside, okay? And the same thing I did with my arms. I made a slit, and once I build this up with other paper products, realize that it is gonna go all the way to this outside edge. That's why it's more towards the inner part, okay? And then I did that for every piece. So here's the hips, and I drew the line where that falls, placed it on there, and then my 2 legs kind of slide into position. When this is built up, it'll come out to this spot. Once you're done with your cardboard armature, we are gonna be hot gluing these together. You can also use the masking tape to help you a little bit to keep it in place while you're gluing. So I'll show you guys how to glue those together and how to start building up in the next video, but I do want to show you all where the cardboard is and where you can find it. So follow me. So over on the other side of the room here, I have 3 boxes. This one back here up against the cubby spaces, this is for the larger pieces. This is for my medium, and this is kind of scrap, which a lot of the pieces that I made are all small pieces, so I could use just the scrap pieces. Okay, X-Acto knives are up on the countertop here along with tape. And real quick, I forgot to mention one thing. When you are using the X-Acto blade, sometimes the blade can actually come out. And it's just because this isn't tightened up, and they get loose because they're not the best X-Acto knives in the world, and we're cutting heavier things. So you would just twist this real tight so it stays in there. All right, let me know if you have questions.